Hey guys, the Airsoft Mechanic here with another look at the APS UAR. This is the Gen 1 series. So I've done a couple of videos previously on this gun, but I wanted to kind of wrap them into one video and try to do a little better job. So we will be going over disassembly, reassembly, as well as some of the modifications that I made. So right off, you'll see it's a custom paint job. I kind of took inspiration from the Mars battle rifle from the Expanse, kind of with this front end deal. Yeah, so that's that. Added a couple red dot and foregrip, or more like a hand stop technically. But anyways, so disassembly. First thing you'll have to do is remove the flash hider. You'll see here I have replaced the stock flash hider with a mock suppressor because I like this look better. The flash hider will be a pain in the butt to get off. So there's a set screw you'll have to back out, and then the whole thing's glued onto the barrel with super glue and a lot of it. So I had to hold mine under hot water to try to get that glue to soften up. Then I had to take a wrench and really crank on it to get it loose. And eventually I got it, but I scratched up my flash hider in the process, and yeah, it was a pain. So just be aware of that. Definitely make sure you back out this set screw that's in the flash hider. Otherwise, when you unthread it, you're going to ruin your threads. So you have to take off the flash hider or suppressor. In this case, that comes off, and there are 3 body pins. There's one here, one there, and one here at the rear of the rifle. All those come out. They sort of, the designers took a cue from the G36, and they put some holes here that your pins can actually go in. So these are just push pins. No screws to undo, just come right out like that. Short one in the front, 2 long ones for the middle and rear pin. Then you want to make sure your gun is set to semi-auto, right there. And then this front section is going to push forward. And then it takes a little bit of finagling to get off. There we go. Yeah, so it can be a little tricky getting that off. And then, so the charging handle, there's a little button here, push that in, that pulls out. You can actually stick this on either side of the gun, depending if you're left-handed or right-handed. That pops out. Cheek rest pops off. Butt plate pops right off. So originally this gun is front wired, and the battery takes a stick-type battery that runs up along in here. I rewired mine to the back, and I had to do some modification to get a stick LiPo battery to fit. Basically, there's a bunch of plastic ribs down in here, I guess, to try to help stiffen this up, but it's plenty stiff without them. So I just cut those out, and now I have just enough room to get an 11.1 stick LiPo in there. So the exact brand and type is right there in case you're wondering. Nanotech 1200 mAh. Will fit in there. It's a little difficult. The wires sometimes get in the way of the pinhole, so you have to be aware of that. But yeah, I made that modification because I do not have any other guns that run stick type batteries, and I don't really like stick types, the normal stick types. This part here, that slides forward, that pops up, just like that. Now there is one screw holding the gearbox in place, right there, just a Phillips head screw. Unscrew that, and then the gearbox just slides right out the back, just like that. So I replaced the motor pretty much right away. The stock motor was just too sluggish for me. I didn't really like it. I did some other modifications inside the gearbox just for reliability, like correcting angle of engagement, radiusing the gearbox here. Basically, that helps prevent any cracking that might occur. Although cracking is usually an issue with version 2 gearboxes. This is a version 3, but I did it anyways just to be safe. One of the things I really do like about this gun is a quick chain spring guide. You can use an Allen wrench or even a flathead I've used, or just your thumb as long as the spring isn't really stiff. The stock bushings that came with this gun were soft metal and they ovaled out very quickly. So I replaced those with some better quality bushings. And of course, wired to Dean's. I have not put a MOSFET in this thing yet. I really should since I'm running a LiPo, but I haven't yet. So I think I've already replaced the trigger contacts maybe once, maybe not. I don't remember. I have too many guns to keep track of. Okay, so somebody was asking me how to get the barrel off, so I'm going to go ahead and show that as well. So the outer barrel right here, you see that's all scratched up. That was from trying to get the flash hider off as well, clamping it there and then one here to try to get that off. So this little plastic piece, that's actually like a nut, so that unscrews. Now to get this off, again, make sure you're gonna have to put the rifle on safe, because this little silver lever in there, it actually acts as a safety and keeps the trigger from being squeezed. It has to be down, so on safe. And this thing pops up, slides off like that. Then the outer barrel just slides off like that. It is an M4 type outer barrel. Okay, then we have some more screws to take off. So we have these two screws here. That's just a little plastic clamp that helps hold, kind of clamps onto the inner barrel. So we'll unscrew those. Alright, then this little plastic clamp kind of slides up, pop it upwards, wiggle it upwards, and then slide it out the side, just like that. Then there's two more screws holding the hop-up unit itself in place. Now with these 4 screws, you're going to want to make sure when you are reassembling the gun that you do not over torque them, because they are just screwing into plastic. Okay, so the screws are out, so this pops up, and you just slide the barrel out the back, just like that. Okay, so now we have that out of the way, I'll show you some trigger modifications I did. So, stock, the gun has a very long trigger pull. That is partly because it is a bullpup design, which means you have the trigger here and you have all this linkage that runs back, and then there's actually that bar down in there, pushes against the trigger on the gearbox itself to fire the gun. There is a small adjustment screw down in here. Hopefully you can see that. Right there. You can back that out a little bit to try to shorten that trigger pull, but it doesn't do much good. So, when I was looking around at how to fix this, came across I don't remember who it was, but it was some airsoft forum, and they just ended up putting a spacer behind the trigger. So you see, this is the trigger itself, that front part, and then that black piece behind it is the spacer. So without that spacer there, basically the trigger falls back, and of course this comes forward, and so you have a longer trigger pull. So putting that spacer in there basically pushes the trigger more like this, so you don't have to pull it as far to engage the trigger on the gearbox. So I put that spacer in there. I just used a pair of needle nose pliers and kind of just put some glue in there, and then got that down in there, and then the trigger spring will just kind of hold it in place. Make sure you only put glue between the spacer and the trigger, not back here, or you're gonna it's gonna get stuck and your trigger won't work. So yeah, just kind of drop that down in there, let that set, and it's been fine. It's been in there for quite a while. Another spacer I ended up putting in, basically I was having over travel. So the trigger would go far forward enough to engage the trigger, but then it was going even a little farther than that, and it didn't need to. So I ended up putting another little block right in here that stops this linkage from going any farther forward, just to prevent over travel, and again, shorten that trigger pull so follow-up shots can be quicker. So again, there's the spacer down in there, and then there is the other spacer right there. I don't really have exact measurements. Probably that front trigger spacer is probably 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters, somewhere in there. And then this one is probably more about 3 millimeters thick, right up there. So another issue, trigger bar falling right out there. I'll show you this linkage anyways while I'm at it. So this linkage here on the side, that is for your selector switch. It goes right down here. See that drop? That engages with this right here. And that moves the selector plate to engage the semi and full auto. And of course that other bar over here that runs along back here is for the actual trigger. See that bar moving down in there. So one of the other issues I had with this gun is I wanted to try mid caps, but mid caps would not work, and I will show you why. Down in here, you'll see it's kind of rough looking, so I actually drilled that out because on a high cap mag, notice the length of this little portion right here. On a mid cap magazine, look at that. Hopefully you can see that. It's longer. So basically, the mag just will not fit in the mag well because it's hitting this plastic here, and it won't go in. So I just dug that out so that now they can fit in there. Another issue I had was some feeding issues, and I basically realized that the mag was kind of staying back, kind of getting more pushed back like this. And what that means is that this little lip here actually pushes back on that tab like that and releases the BBs. So if the magazine is not pushed forward enough for that little nub there to engage this, you're gonna have feeding issues. So what I ended up doing was adding a spacer back in here, just clear plastic, so you probably can't see it real well. But that's probably, I don't know, 0.5 millimeter thick or so. Again, probably going to just take some experimentation to get it right. You could also put tape on your mags, but it's more likely to just peel off. So put that in there, and basically that helps keep the magazine seated correctly so everything feeds. Still going to have some issues with mag. It's pretty picky. I found it feeds the 2 small high caps that it comes with just fine. I've had 1 or 2 other high cap magazines, just your basic Stanag, like mag brand, that seemed to feed okay. The mid caps I wanted to use, they fed, but they were also new, so they probably just didn't ever get broken completely. But the issue I had with them was if you filled the mag up all the way, it tended to have jamming issues. So I could only fill the mags like 3/4 of the way full in order for it to feed. So I gave up on those, just went back to high caps because it's easier. Alright, so now we're going to reassemble the gun. So we will start out with the inner barrel. Get your slides in right through here. Push up and then push down. So I don't see many people who actually use the UAR, and there's a reason for that, because as a stock gun, the Generation 1 at least, it's kind of crappy. I had to do a lot of work to make it reliable and shoot the way I wanted. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the hop-up. So the bucking is sort of a custom bucking as far as its dimensions go. Basically, you have a little lip on the bucking that actually helps seal around the air nozzle, and that lip is a little shorter than a standard bucking. So I tried putting a standard bucking in, and the issue I had was that since that lip was a little longer in the feeding tube here, it was actually jutting into the feeding tube, so the BBs would go up and hit that, and it would kind of fold the bucking over, and it caused jamming. So I had to end up cutting that lip on the bucking down a little bit to get everything to feed. Also, the barrel itself, the window on the barrel, let me grab another barrel here, I'll show you. So standard barrel window is rectangular or square, like that. So the one that came with UAR was kind of had like a V-shaped notch. It's kind of odd. Not sure really why they did that. I ended up filing that down to make it more rectangular and doing what's called a G-hop, which is basically an R-hop, and you just use a patch piece of a bucking instead of the special R-hop patch. Not quite as effective, but does help flatten the trajectory, and you can use heavier weight BBs because you can get more hop. So then put this back on. Again, with these screws, just screwing into plastic, so don't overdo it. Alright, now the outer barrel. This does have to go in a particular way. So see this flat side, that goes down. So you should see these 3 little notches there. Oh yes, make sure your gun is on safe for this part. Slides back, and those just slide in just like that. Then we put on our little plastic nut. That tightens the barrel in place, or the outer barrel in place. Then we do the gearbox next. I'm going to go ahead and replace the spring. I'm going to go ahead and replace the spring here. Push that in, give it about a 45-degree turn. And then we want to make sure the gun is back in semi-auto. That, again, aligns the bar here so it connects with the lever here on the gearbox. So gearbox just slides in. Push it forward like that. Just one little screw here. Alright, then we take this piece here, and you will see there's a spring on the back end. And the spring has a little point on it that has to go in a little hole right back here. So just want to make sure it's lined up correctly. Slide that back. Make sure this works. Okay, we're good. Now we're going to I'm going to go ahead and put this on. Put this back in. Take our front end. So in the front here, kind of make sure that's lined up right there, so that these kind of slide together right there. Again, it's a little tricky. There we go. Just push down. You kind of have to bring it in at an angle and then push it down and pull back. All right. Then we just replace our pins. Reattach our suppressor. And there you go. Disassembly, reassembly, all the good stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like. Thanks for watching. See you next time.